What's up, fans? It's John Bravo here, and I'm glad you dropped by to see us today. I'm a little bit busy, so we're only going to be able to get into the fights for this weekend. And again, I'm always here. I want to let you know I'm here to grow this channel, obviously, but with grassroots. I'm going to bring you quality content, breakdowns, post-fight, pre-fight analysis. See, I scour the internets. I read the tweets, the twitches, the gram and the internets and I keep my finger right on the pulse. I want to cover all the options, all the issues of this sport. There's almost 1,000 fighters in the UFC alone. Uh, I go over it all. I just absolutely obsess over all this stuff, so you guys don't have to. Um, so leave your comments here. We will respond. I mean, look how many subs I have. I have plenty of time. So also make sure you like and subscribe. It's easy. It's great karma. And in the future, I'm going to bring you fighters, coaches, trainers, doctors, any professionals or amateurs that are involved in this life. Today's video it's special to me. It's going to be specifically on the fight card that's in Philly. It's special to me in Philly because that's my hometown. So let's get to it. The other reason it's special to me is because I'm an MMA fan, and if you don't like tonight's fight, if you don't know the fighters involved in tonight's fight, then you can't be considered quite the hardcore fan. Anyway, this fighter is what people love to see: pure, unadulterated, sexy, bloody violence between two fighters. You've got, on paper, to me, to be a little bit of a better striker. When you look at Edson Barboza, when you break him down, he's got a better training camp. He trains out of ATT. I think it's safe to say that he's got better training partners coming out of there, and that he gets better training where he's at. More experienced training partners, sparring partners, and things like that. He's got that head kick, wheel kick, knockout. He's got the knockout with knees straight up the middle, but I believe Gaethje has a knockout the same way with knees up the middle, but in the World Series of Fighting. When you look over and you look up and down, now remember, these are just my picks, my personal opinion, nothing that you want to take to the bank with you, nothing you want to bet the farm on, but I do know the sport, and I know the sport pretty well. I'm pretty accurate with it, although I have been wrong before. I have been wrong in the past. This sport is like that, though. It will change your mind, break your heart, and hurt your feelings. So be careful if you're actually putting money on this thing. I wouldn't touch it with my money with a 10-foot pole. Because, like I said, you've got Barboza, one of the greatest strikers in the UFC right now, hands down. I think everybody can agree on that. We're looking at least a 4, maybe a 5-inch reach advantage for Junior Barboza, Edson Barboza. He is worlds faster than my boy here, Justin Gaethje, and I think that's going to be a factor. I think Gaethje's not seen speed like this yet, especially in his UFC career, especially in the World Series of Fighting career. Barboza's keys will be to use that speed, try to find that switch kick in there, try not to get involved in the leg kicking battle. I know that Gaethje's going to try to lure, and that's another interesting thing, interesting thing in this fight to shine a spotlight on, is the fact that both of these guys are responsible for something that's pretty rare, making a guy quit just from leg kicks. That's a pretty rare and an amazing feat, and both of these guys have done it. I believe Barboza's done it twice. I believe Justin Gaethje may have done it more than twice. So, and you've got two guys, and they basically promised to do that to one another, with Barboza putting out a tweet the other day saying that he's ready for a war, a 25-minute war. It is a 5-round fight, and we know Gaethje's ready for a war, and that just makes for a great fight. Gaethje does have something up his sleeve, though. He's an All-American wrestler. Barboza has shown to have trouble with wrestlers when they mix in the takedowns and the level changes. Like with Kevin Lee, he obviously got mauled by Khabib, who's a fantastic wrestler, the best wrestler in that division, and hands down. Obviously because he's got the belt. So Barboza's been in there with the best. He's got a great body of work. I don't know that Gaethje has got the same resume. He hasn't quite seen those guys. He is, though, a problem for Barboza in a lot of different ways, though, because he is what Barboza seems to have a little bit of trouble with is the pressure. Once he gets pressured, you'll notice Barboza, he's known for having this fantastic jab, this fantastic poking, quick, lightning jab. Um, but as soon as he gets punched in the face and he relies on his instincts and he completely abandons his jab and everything becomes a hook. All of his attacks are hooky attacks, or he looks to finish you with a spinning wheel kick or something fantastic like that. So he is going to get tried. He is going to get pushed. He is going to get pressured. I think Gaethje's going to come forward with that just cover up, head down defense, which is going to leave him susceptible to that up the middle knee that Barboza is known to throw. Not just that, the uppercut. Um, However, I think Gaethje's going to win this fight. With all that being said, he's got the number one intangible that it's can't be understated. It can't be overstated. I'm sorry with with this particular caliber of fight. He's got the toughness, man. He can do it. He's gonna push Barboza all the way to the end. I think what he needs to do is get Barboza against the fence. I think any training camp, no matter where you're at, I think they're going to notice that. And they're going to try to impress that and convey that through to Gaethje, and his team is going to work on how to cut off the movement of Barboza, his side to side, and try to pin him up against the fence as best as they can. And if he can do that, that eliminates 90% of what's in Barboza's arsenal as far as finishing tools, and it only increases the level of Gaethje's attacks. The guy he finished up against the cage with leg kicks. I'm sorry, the guy he finished with leg kicks was up against the cage. They weren't just naked as they were with Barboza's. So when you now remember, again, this is just my opinion, but I look at this and on paper, it just seems like Barboza is supposed to win this fight, but Justin Gaethje just has that intangible thing, that toughness. He's going to find a way, and I think when Barboza has been now he's been down this path, which might be a good thing and it might be a bad thing. He has shown his toughness. Now, has that withered his chin some? You know, the wars that he's been in with these certain people in the UFC. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But if you ask me, what my heart's telling me is Justin Gaethje. We're going to be seeing a backflip off the cage on Saturday night between these two. At the end of the fight, we're going to see Barboza finished, and we're going to see a backflip off the cage. Justin Gaethje wins it by finish somewhere in the third round, maybe the fourth round, doctor stoppage. Who knows? Although Barboza is tough enough and has shown in the past that he can. It could be a decision. I know a lot of people have argued with me on that, but Gaethje is a pressure fighter. If he's able to put Barboza against the cage, and he might not be able to finish him, it's not as though Barboza's going to quit. It's not as though Barboza is known as a quit fighter. But the doctor could step in. There's a number of things that could happen. I just don't think that quitting will be on Barboza or Gaethje's mind. It'd be just about who the will of each fighter and which one is able to withstand it and continue to move forward. So that's my personal feelings on that fight. You better believe I'm going to be there to see it. Me, my whole family, my granny, my grandpa, my neighbors. The next fight we're going to take a look at here is David Branch versus Jack Hermanson. And this is a interesting fight to me. You've got David Branch, who is a Renzo Gracie black belt. Not a fighter who I particularly like as far as personality goes, but we're not in the personality game. Jack Hermanson has a thorough, long body of work in other organizations. To me, he's yet to be proven in the UFC as much as the UFC has gotten behind him with their hype train and their press train, and they've tried to promote him. Maybe in doing that is how they're promoting this fight with David Branch, and the matchmakers see that this will only help Branch's notoriety or for him. I just see that this to me is a win by Branch, a pretty easy one. If he could find a way to work his body in there, the fact that he is better trained, I think he has a better submission game. He's got a much he's got a longer reach, by 5-6 inches or something like that. Hermanson is tough though. He's got a great takedown with ground and pound. So if he could physically, if he turns out to be physically stronger, which you don't know that until they actually get in the cage and they actually face off, and they put hands on one another, who's actually the stronger guy? My bet, I'm going with Branch on this one. Again, I'm not fully invested in that fight at all. It's definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing. And if you ask me, if you had a gun to my head, I would go with Branch on that one. And the next one after that one is we're looking at Waterson versus Kowalczyk. And you got Michelle Waterson, who's a karate and a taekwondo style fighter. She likes to dart in and out. She likes to scurry around the side of the cage, and she has these great combinations. She's got great kicks. It's just that Carolina Kowalczyk, she is a much more established, a much more bigger fighter as well. I mean, I don't know about that much bigger, but she just seemed to be a little bit bigger during their weigh-ins, taller. Um, when you look at Kowalczyk's work, she's got a better clinch than Waterson. But with all that being said, I just see something extra special in Michelle Waterson's eyes this week. She seems to have a new fire, a new. I think that Michelle is gonna figure out a way to either. Obviously, she's got that puncher's chance where she could end it with a good hard kick or a combination, and find a way to put her out. And then we don't know how. The big question mark is how is Carolina Kowalczyk's chin going to be after her last fight with Jessica Andrade, where maybe it's the elephant in the room and nobody's talking about it, where she quite possibly has going to be on one of the highlight reels for the best knockout of the year, for the rest of MMA history. But let's not forget she's coming back early from that. And I think she's back a little bit too early. I think that Kowalczyk is going to have to find a way to get that confidence back in her chin. And I don't think that first test out there should have been Michelle Waterson. I think we're going to find out. Obviously, we're going to find out on Saturday. But I think we're going to find out that it is a bit too early for Carolina Kowalczyk to come back. I don't know if she has that confidence in her chin, in that she's going to come forward and she's going to be able to protect herself properly. I could see this fight going to a decision, but I see Michelle getting that win by decision as being the more aggressive and the more forward pressuring fighter. And the next one after that, we're looking at Josh Emmett and Michael Johnson. And it's funny to me that we're looking at this one now because Josh Emmett, again, another example of somebody who just got done taking a nasty beating by Jeremy Stevens, where he took knees to the face, elbows to the face. I believe he's had surgeries and a steel plate put in his face. And he is back too early against at least what they publicize as being the doctor's orders is a year and a half. I think he's only been out a year. I think that Michael Johnson just moved down to 145. So there's no doubt. I know he's the bigger fighter right there. When you looked at them at the weigh-ins, he was just obviously a bigger, longer fighter. I think he's more experienced. I think he's better trained since he's trained with the Black Zillions. He's now training with Henry Hooft out at Hard Knock 365, and they're obviously on the rise with their surging, with Pettis just winning and Luke Rockhold. So they're a surging team. And Josh Emmett, he's with Alpha Male. Let's be honest, their team has not. It can't be considered a surging team. They're a well-established in the game team who has experienced a lot of losses as of late. They've shown inability to grow. They've shown that they, with with the departure of certain guys, and they just haven't been able to produce the same type of fighter that they were back in the day. So if you ask me on that one, my money's going to be on MJ in that one. Now after that, we're going to look at Kennedy Njoku versus Paul the Bear Jew Craig. I'm sorry. What can you say about this particular fight? I mean, everywhere that I looked, at least when I looked at this fight, and I like to look at everything, including age, experience. I take a look at the odds. I didn't get a chance to study odds too much on any of these fights because they were all so even throughout the week, and I didn't expect them to change too much at the end of the week closer that we got to the fight. So they probably have, but it doesn't really that doesn't really influence any of. I try not to let that influence any of my decisions. I believe that Kennedy is favored in this fight because he is just so absolutely huge and long and powerful. He can absolutely. He's just so big. He does have the tools to absolutely run over Paul Craig, which is what I believe that a lot of people think is going to happen. Paul Craig is not what I would consider to be a top 10 guy yet, but he's obviously no pushover. He's in the UFC. He's desperate. He's got his back against the wall. He's lost the last three out of his last four. He's got good submissions. He's got a decent takedown. But my money's on Kennedy in that one. And then the Nigerian Express rolls on, where you got Sadiq Youssef facing Shaman Moraes. Now here's a contest, a situation where you've got Sadiq Youssef, a young, sleek, fast, very powerful finishing machine. He looks to be very skilled. He looks to be great at picking his shots. He's got an impressive knockout in it to win. Knockout to. He finishes most of his opponents by knockout, I should say. It looks like he can wrestle. His submission game or his submission defense game is up in the air, but I don't think that's even going to come into question here. Shaman Moraes should be a good jiu-jitsu artist. Being from Nogueiro's team, he's definitely more experienced. Being a well-established fighter in another organization. But I think we're going to see Sadiq finish this one, and I think we're going to see him finish this one viciously, finish it early. My money's on Sadiq Youssef. He's just too big. He's too skilled. And we're going to have to see how these guys are doing. But, the Nigerian nation is pushing out some great fighters right now, and I think that it's just going to continue to move. Again, this is going to be a very short video. I just wanted to tell you guys what I thought about the fights this week. Let me know what you think about what I said in the comments. We're not going to get to the news, the developing stories. Honestly, there's just been so many of them for me to try to figure out what to put on the channel and have it on in time for this week's picks. I know that a lot of you guys out there wanted to know what I thought. Here it is. Now, since there is no fights next weekend, I think we're going to talk about a lot of the different developing news and developing events that are coming out, because there's a lot of things that we have to talk about. I want to know, should they keep the obviously we all feel that they should keep the flyweights, but what if the UFC added that other division that everybody's clamoring for, the 160, or I think the best suggestion was by Dustin Poirier, who said 162 and a half, so that you wouldn't have to mess with the 170, the welterweight level. What if they were to add that and take away the flyweights? What would you guys have to say about that? I say, well, let's keep them all. But whatever you guys think we should talk about next week, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, guys. I'm out. Peace.